Hey kids, what's going on? I want to welcome you guys to my new program. I had a different name for it, but Patrick Bales convinced me that was inappropriate. So we're going to call the show Love in the Time of Quarterbacks. I thought it was pretty funny. I thought it was a little, what do they call that? Highbrow humor. I thought it was kind of fun. And truthfully, if I don't find a Green Bay Packers, site or blog or something that's called Love in the Time of COVID or Love in the Time of Coronavirus or something like that, I mean, it writes itself. I'm going to be pretty upset if I don't see one of those sooner or later. Anywho, I have been promising for a couple of years to do a brief tutorial type video for those of you who follow me who are kind of beginners and don't understand some of the terms that I use. So I'm going to do probably a 10-minute video, just explain a few things. If you have any questions further, you can always reach out to me. Most of you know if you have me on my phone number, text me, email, you can email me, captainhandsomesports@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at CPT_handsome. That's at Captain Handsome, obviously. So yeah, I'm just going to get right into it. I want to start with bankroll. I always talk about a bankroll. And essentially, if you don't understand what that is, you probably shouldn't be doing this. But what some people don't understand is how to set up their bankroll. And I can just tell you how I do it. By no means am I an expert in this. There are tons of people who are better than me at this, but I have been doing it for a long time. I am very good at limiting losses. I do have 7 consecutive years in the black, betting on football, which is, pretty, successful, pretty nice. But again, I'm certainly not one of the best in the world at this. There are plenty of people that are better at this than me, but I'll give you what I use. So my recommendation would be that you figure out what you want to spend on the year. Now, my actual recommendation is that you have that money ahead of time. I don't recommend playing with money that, I don't love the idea of betting money weekly, based on, I'll take, $150 off my paycheck every other week or something like that, just because it can get you into trouble if you need money for something else and you feel inclined to do that. But with the system that I use, I start with a bankroll every year. I personally start with $5,000. That's what I start with every year. That's what I bet with every year. And you break that into units. So what I do is I like to do units as 1/100th of my bankroll. Now, the reason that I do that is because of what I bet weekly. I bet on average 8 to 10 units a week. That's average for me. Some weeks I'll go 12, some weeks I'll go 6, but on average it's usually about 8 to 10 units a week. So for me, that gives me 10 weeks if I were to lose every single bet. It's not realistic. It's never happened. I think I've only had 2 weeks in the last 2 years where I lost every bet, maybe 3. But in case of absolute emergency, that'll get you through 10 weeks of the season. That shouldn't happen that way. And that's just my particular strategy. It gets me through over halfway through the season. With an 18-week season, it's a little bit closer this year, plus playoffs and stuff like that. But that's just what I like to do. I like to make my unit 1/100th of my bankroll. So for me, a unit is $50. You set a unit that's comfortable for you. If your unit is $5, who cares? Most people who like betting like the rush anyways. If you're betting because you need the money, don't do it. Stop. Get some help. Talk to somebody. But for people like myself, I like the rush. I have been successful. I've been able to pay for a football trip every year based on my winnings. This year I will be going to Vegas for week 3 versus Miami. Super excited. I was supposed to do it last year for my birthday, and because it was the week after my birthday, and obviously nobody could go anywhere. I certainly wasn't getting out of Canada. So it is what it is. The second thing I want to talk about is having multiple books. And the ideas of when I use the term juice and line shopping and things like that. So my recommendation is always to have money in multiple books. I have money in 7 different books right now. And the reason you do that is because you want to be able to line shop. Now, 7 might be too many. To be honest, there's 1 or 2 that I almost never use, and I should probably just pull that money out. But I haven't because I, have money in there and I want it be able to line shop, and if I find an advantage there, I'm going to use it. If you have the ability to put money in 7 different books, great, do that. But my recommendation is to have at least 3 books and try to find a lot of people use that I know in Canada use Bet365. It's popular. It advertises everywhere. They give you a bonus when you sign up and deposit a certain amount of money. And so a lot of people like that. It's fine. It is a square book, though, and what you mean by square is you mean the general betting public, and that's the reason that the juice is what it is. And by juice, I mean when you see the number and you'll see, let's say week 1 Miami +3 -110. Well, the juice is the -110, and it means you'd have to bet $100 to make, or $110 to make $100. That's what the -110 means. Now, if you're looking at other books like Five Dimes or Pinnacle or things like that, which are a little sharper, often you'll get -107, often you'll get -106. Now, you probably don't think that's a big deal. You say, oh, well, I'm not betting $110, so why do I care about that $3 or $4? Because, if I'm betting $22 or something like that, it only ends up being, 30 cents or 40 cents or 60 cents or something like that. But the truth is, over the whole year, it's going to add up. And even beyond that, in sports betting, the line between success and failure, the line between a profit and a failure is so small. If you pay on average -110, then you have to be at 55% just to break even. So it's not really, it gives you less of an opportunity to be successful by paying more. It's always smart. I mean, if you're a math guy, if you're doing this because you have your own model or things like that, you should understand that. If you're newer to it, you probably just say, I just like having my money in one thing and I'll just pay whatever it is. But the truth is, if you're able to afford to spread that out a little bit over a few books, definitely do that, because you will be able to find advantages on other lines. Even with the spreads and things like that, if one of them is giving you the hook for 3 cents on the dollar, it's usually worth it to pay that. I mean, I think it's always worth it to pay that. And what I mean by the hook is there are key numbers: 3, 6, and 7. 3's a field goal, 6 is a touchdown, 7 is a converted touchdown, and those are considered the key numbers. Now, key numbers aren't as key as they were once upon a time, simply because they go for it they go for 2 more often now. Kickers are missing kicks, except for Jason Sanders, because he is the best. And Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker's amazing too, but Jason Sanders is probably the best now. Kickers are missing kicks. Like, all sorts of things are happening now. And, you're not getting the standard scores we used to get. So those numbers aren't as key as they were, but they're still key numbers. And if you're able to get that half a point, if you're going to lay 3.5, but you can lay 3 for 3 more cents on the dollar, it's really worth it to lay 3 for 3 more cents on a dollar, because there's a much better chance that you'll push there. I mean, you won't push at 3.5, obviously, but now you've bought yourself the push as well if they win by 3. So, line shopping, looking at, buying the extra few cents for the hook, things like that actually matter. And even beyond that, why would you pay -110 when -106 is available? You know what I mean? If you're, shopping online and you've got 2 websites open and, you want to buy a pair of headphones and one of them's $92 and the other one has the exact same headphones for $89.99 and the shipping costs the same, you're going to buy the $89.99 one. So why not do that with this? You have your account and you say, oh, it's my account, that's the one I'm going to use. It's just not smart business, right? So when I talk about line shopping and juice and the hook and things like that, that's what I'm talking about, is making sure that you're getting the best value for your bets. Another thing that I spoke about a lot last year, just because it kind of became, something that seemed to be a little more prevalent as more people are. I mean, betting was huge last year simply because people were bored. Because they couldn't do what they wanted to do. So a lot more people were betting. And so I've spoken about the term reverse line movement. And essentially what that means is you get a ton of people, a ton of squares betting on one side, but the line moves the other way. or the line is stagnant. And what that tells you is that the sharp money's on the other side. Sharps are the pros, the people who do this for money. I'm a square. I'm just a slightly less square than the average square. But there are people who do this, who run multiple models. I have a model that I built that has been pretty successful. But there are people who are much better at this, much better, understand the math better than I do, which I think I understand it pretty well, but I'm aware that there's people who understand it better than me. And that's another thing, is just understand that, like, you're not a pro. If you don't do this for a living, you're definitely not a pro. If you make some money every year, I know people who say, oh, I made 12 grand in 2 weeks and things like that. And they'll never tell you the story about how they lost, 18 grand in over 3 months right before that. The truth is, if you're watching this video, you're a square. And that's okay. I'm a square too. It doesn't matter. Just try to be one of the smarter squares. Try to watch for things like that. That's how you learn to make sharper plays. You can make sharp plays and be a square, and that's okay. So, you want to watch that. You definitely want to watch how the line moves. I try to, as soon as the lines open on Sunday night sometimes, or Monday, or obviously the advanced lines you can look at as well for weeks ahead. But I like to look at what they are on Sunday night and Monday night, after we know who's gotten hurt and things like that, and who is playing, and how well, for me, I'm huge on how the offensive line is able to move people and able to protect the quarterback and open lanes for the running backs. So I pay a ton of attention to that. And so that's when I look at the lines, and that's usually when I'll start making my bets, which brings me to the next thing, which is closing line value. The best example I can give you is 2 years ago when the Dolphins were tanking for Tua. The Ravens-Dolphins game opened at Baltimore -4. I screamed to the high heavens for everybody to bet Baltimore -4. I was if you followed me on Twitter, you saw I posted every week, because that line didn't move for probably a week or two, and then started moving and moving and moving. And the Dolphins made even more moves to make themselves even worse. And eventually, I think before the game, I think the highest it got was -6.5. Well, if you were betting -6.5 in a square book, you got -110. If you bet -4 initially, you got -110, and they only had to win by 4. Now, they ended up smashing the Dolphins. So as far as what line you took there, it didn't matter. But I also told people that you should make -6.5 bets, and you got +125 on that. I also said that you should make -9.5 bets as well, which I believe is 155 or 175. Maybe it was, I think it was 175. Either way, if you followed that, you made a ton of money. I made an obscene amount of money on that. I'm a Dolphins fan. I know my team really well. I understood that I believe that they had 13 new starters on the team for week 1, which is obviously a horribly bad sign. They obviously weren't trying to win. They, wanted to be a crummy team. And that's one of the things you look for early in the season is teams that have a ton of new starters and things like that, because they're not going to be great. As I told you guys for week 1 last year, you wanted to look for the teams that had a lot of consistency in week 1, especially during a season with no proper training camp and no preseason. But anyways, I obviously, if you followed me on the Dolphins bets, or on the Ravens bets there, you got a ton of closing line value. On the other end of things, when I saw the lines first open this week, I jumped all over Minnesota -4 against Cincinnati. And that line, I believe, has moved to 3.5. I've put more on it since then. There's no -3 available anywhere that I've seen. If it goes to -3, I will hit it aggressively again. I think Minnesota's going to smash them. I think that Cincinnati is... Burrow obviously doesn't look 100%. Jamar Chase looks awful right now. So I think that they're going to rely really heavily on Joe Mixon, and I think that Minnesota is a very, very good team. So this isn't supposed to be a bet video, but if you're looking at it, I really do like Minnesota in week 1. I think that they were my favorite bet when I first saw the lines, and I'm still, pretty aggressive on that. The last two things I want to talk to you about. One is ProLine. For those who live in Ontario, we have a betting system called ProLine. They're now allowed to do single game bets, but previous to that, it had to be all parlays. And as I've stated to you guys many times in the past, do not play parlays on ProLine. I haven't looked at their single game bets odds and see how they compare yet, but I can tell you that with the parlays, they are thieves. First of all, the numbers that they give you aren't as good as you'll get on an offshore. Second of all, they don't give you the odds they tell you they're giving you. If you make a number of plays and they're supposed to give you 10-1, and you bet you have to pay them $20, and you get back, if you win that, 200. Well, you didn't get 10-1, you got 9-1 because they didn't give you 200 plus your initial stake. Whereas if you're using an offshore and it tells you have 10-1, you bet 20 and they return 220. They give you the 10-1 they said that they were going to give you, and they give you your initial stake back, which is how it should be. But Proline has been literally stealing from people for years and lying about that, but gotten away with it because they're owned by the government. The other site I want to talk to you about is Barstool Sports. These guys are the worst human beings on the planet. We know that. They're misogynistic cretins. Xenophobic, misogynistic, everything in the world. But did you also know that on top of that, their sportsbook is as crooked as can be? Absolute joke. If you win, I've already seen 3 or 4 people on Twitter who are better, smarter bettors than I am, who have already been booted from the site because they've won too much. So if you keep losing, they don't care. But if you're good at it and you're good at the math and you can understand the opportunities, you don't get to bet there anymore. Seems like a pretty crooked system to me. And you've got Portnoy, who was the guy during it wasn't AMC, it was GameStop. During the whole GameStop thing, he created a video, I'm with the people, blah, 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 blah. This is ridiculous. How can you do this? This is unfair. Well, what he's doing is equally unfair. If you're good at betting, you can't bet. If you're bad at betting, we'll take your money. He's a scumbag. If you like his content, that's up to you. I don't care. But don't bet with their book. It is crooked as can be. Don't ever touch their book. They are crooked, crooked, crooked human beings parading as the everyman. They're horrible people. Don't do it. Last thing I'm going to say that I always try to say at the end of every video is make sure you bet within your means. Don't be silly. Don't make silly mistakes. Don't bet more than you have the opportunity to. Don't say, if I'll just do this and I'll get it all back. That doesn't work. Set yourself up a system at the beginning of the year. Don't do silly things to hurt yourself. If you need to lower your unit, that's great. That's fine. That's totally okay. If you have been losing too much money and you say, I want to lower my unit because I don't like the bets I've been playing, I don't like how things have been going, that's great. That'll keep you within your initial budget. Because if you've been losing too much, you'll run out of money. But don't be silly. Don't do that. I'm going to empty my account on this one bet because this will put me back into it. It's just a silly decision. Don't bet more than you can. If you think you have an issue, if you think that you are betting too much and you can't stop yourself, there's a ton of people you can reach out to. Just don't be silly like that. Don't be stupid. That's almost as dumb as playing Proline or with Barstool Sportsbook. Okay? Thank you so much, guys. I hopefully we'll have a better logo than this one. This is just kind of my place setter right now. The new program is called Love in the Time of Quarterbacks. I think it's fun. Let me know what you think, guys. And again, if you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out to me. I really enjoy doing this. I love talking to people about this. Like I said, I'm certainly not a sharp. I'm not a professional, but I've been doing it a long time. I've been moderately successful at it, and I love sharing my stuff with people. I will never, ever charge for it because that's just not what I do. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.